Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is of course a live game review of our 1-0 victory against Brighton at Goodison Park last Saturday. Not the greatest of Everton performances, but a win nonetheless, and a really much needed win. Really much needed, doesn't make sense, but a much needed win for Everton, especially after the performance the week before against Liverpool, and obviously the loss in the Premier League against Manchester City the week before that. It was important that Everton got back to winning ways under Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo Ancelotti again getting another 3 points against the side that have been doing quite well recently and are in and around us in the table as well. Taking a 1-0 victory, like I said, it wasn't the greatest game of football, it wasn't the most magnificent performance by a long stretch of the imagination, but it was a win, and it's 3 points at the end of the day, and that's what we expected at the start of the day, and that's what we got at the end of the day. I picked a really interesting quote out of Carlo Ancelotti's post-game interview. It's the title of the live stream. I want to talk about it as well. Straight off the mark, he says, "We shouldn't have to react, we must start acting." So he was asked obviously about the reaction of the players after the Merseyside derby defeat and after all of the criticism midweek, and his answer was absolutely fantastic. He said, "We shouldn't have to react, it's important that we act firstly so that we don't have to react." Now there's something in that message that clearly says to me that is the message of a proactive manager and not a reactive manager. Now we've been speaking for months and months, even years, with Marco Silva, with Roberto Martinez, with Ronald Koeman, about how these type of managers are all reactive managers. They'll react to a situation after it's happened. For example, going a goal down and then reacting to the situation, or staying with the same formation or the same tactics even when you know it's not going wrong just because we haven't conceded yet. Carlo Ancelotti obviously appearing as a very proactive manager, a manager that will make those changes, a manager that isn't afraid to change things if he sees that it's not working, despite the fact that we may still be in a game of football and we mightn't have conceded. And that comment that he made after the game on Saturday is exactly saying that. He says we shouldn't have to react, we need to start acting, and I think it's a fantastic comment. Again, second time, after 2 wins, he's come out and he's basically said, yeah, okay, we won, but, we still need to be doing an awful lot better. There's always room for improvement, and I really like that in Carlo Ancelotti's post-game message. And at the end of the day, there is room for improvement on Saturday's performance. It wasn't fantastic, considering, the week that we had as Evertonians last week, and obviously the performance and the result against Liverpool on Sunday. It was absolutely fantastic to get the win, and I think that's all a lot of us really wanted. Yes, it would have been fantastic for them to go out and put in a 5-star performance and put 3, 4 or 5 past Brighton, but I think at the end of the day, when you sit back and you look at the results of other teams and you start to view football in the position that we're currently in, obviously in the middle of January, it was a massively important 3 points, and it leaves us literally about 6 points away from a European place. A couple of wins and we're right up there, in the in and around the top 6, the top 7. And if you'd have asked us 2 or 3 months ago, when Marco Silva was coming towards the end of his career and we were losing left, right and centre to teams like Brighton, to teams like Burnley, to teams like Bournemouth, if you'd asked us then, how do you think the season's going to end? Do you think you can possibly get in the top 6? Do you think you could possibly get in a European place? I think a lot of Evertonians have said absolutely not. No, we'll be lucky to finish in the top 10, maybe even the top sort of 12 might be the expectation. But a couple of wins under Carlo Ancelotti, obviously beating Burnley, beating Brighton on Saturday, and all of a sudden we're back in that race. We are literally only a couple of wins away from being back there, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself, and I don't want to start jumping before we can walk, because I think it's important as Evertonians. We've done that previously where we start to try and run before we can walk, and it always comes and bites us back on the arse. But it's actual fact, we are 6 points away from being right back in that run for Europe, back amongst it with the likes of Wolves, Tottenham. We're 3 points away from Tottenham, and I know Tottenham are on poor form at the minute, but considering where their expectation at the start of the season compared to our expectation, sort of October, November time, when we were having a really bad time, and a lot of us were genuinely fearing relegation. You can see the amount of work that not only Duncan Ferguson's done with this team, but also Carlo Ancelotti's done with it in the short time that he's been here. You can see there's work going on in the training ground, and there's improvements week in, week out. They mightn't be massive, and I think it's very important that we understand that it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be solved overnight, regardless of who the manager is, regardless of who comes in terms of personnel, player-wise. Obviously, we're midway through the January transfer window. We've been linked with another player today that we'll talk about in just a second. Not today, yesterday, but we'll talk about him in just a second. But it's important that even if these players do come in with the manager that's obviously came in, it's really, really important that we understand that it's not going to change overnight and that it's not going to be solved, by the sort of swing of a wand. Carlo Ancelotti doesn't have a magic wand at the end of the day, and it's important that we can see those little improvements on the pitch and we can see those little changes that he's making, and obviously it's coming off in the performances and in the results more often. And I was walking home from the game on Saturday, and I was randomly I was thinking about Ancelotti's reign so far and how well he's done, and I was thinking about how usually when a manager comes in, you get sort of a honeymoon period. Obviously the biggest sort of one to remember in recent times was Manchester United when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer come in. They had a massive honeymoon period, and then it sort of died down, and now they're as inconsistent as they were under their previous managers. I think we sort of arguably had a little bit of a honeymoon period when Duncan Ferguson come in. He had the players fighting for the badge, he had the players chasing and battling and winning games purely off the hard work and the battle. I don't feel like this is a honeymoon period for Carlo Ancelotti, and I think that's a good thing, because it's not like we're going out and we're blowing teams away week in, week out. There's still, certain performances from Everton players that you think you could be doing better, you need to be doing better, you need to be trying harder, you need to be better on the ball, but we're still winning games of football, and that's a really, really positive sign for me, because it obviously would have all got carried away if Ancelotti had come in and would have won the first 3 games 4-0, and with the beat Brighton yesterday 3-0, would have all been sort of understanding that this could just be a period of time, that it's a little bit of a high moment for the club. The players are high in confidence. It is that type of honeymoon period. But coming off the back of what was such a devastating loss last week against Liverpool, and quite a poor loss against Manchester City the week before as well, I think this feels different to what a typical honeymoon period in football would feel like, because not only have we got 2 really, really good wins previously under Carlo Ancelotti against sides that are in and around us in the league and that we should be beating, but now we've bounced back, we've come back, we've reacted from what was not the worst sort of result against Manchester City, I suppose, but not the best performance due to tiredness and due to obviously the players were fatigued, but what was an absolutely dreadful performance against Liverpool, and we've come back, we've reacted well to that, and we've gone out and we've beaten a team that were in relatively good form in and around the position that we were in this season. If Brighton had won, I believe that they've overtaken us in the Premier League. So like I said, it doesn't feel like that sort of generic honeymoon period under Ancelotti. It just feels like Ancelotti's come in, he's working with the players on the training ground, and we're seeing these improvements week in, week out. We've seen another defensively solid performance on Saturday. Michael Keane, I thought, was absolutely excellent. Carlo Ancelotti spoke about the 3 centre-halves after the game. He spoke about his decision to take Yerry Mina out the team. He said that, it wasn't anything to do with Yerry's performances. He said that it was simple. I took Yerry Mina out to rest him. He'll be back in the squad, on the weekend against West Ham, and it'll be Mason Holgate who will come out of the squad for a rest. And he also said that he has the same amount of confidence in all 3 centre-backs, Mason Holgate, Yerry Mina and Michael Keane, which is a massive, massive boost to Mason Holgate, and a massive show of how far Mason Holgate's come in the last sort of 18 months, from going out on loan to West Brom because he was deemed, not good enough to play in the Premier League, to, a manager like Carlo Ancelotti having the same confidence in him as he has, 2 £30 million centre-halves. That's absolutely massive for Mason Holgate. But like I said, it's that improvement that you can see on the training ground, and we know as fans that it could have been better on Saturday, and the players could have put it, arguably in a better performance, and we could have, won the game by more. But at the end of the day, 3 points is 3 points, isn't it? And it was just important that we got those 3 points. It was an absolutely fantastic goal by Richarlison. We'll go into talking about it in just a second. But like I said, overall, just to quickly summarise the game, initially, it wasn't the best game of football, it wasn't the best performance, but it was really important that we went out and we got the 3 points. And if we can walk away from Goodison more often in the future saying we should have done an awful lot better there, but we still got the win, I think it shows that we're only going onwards and upwards, and it's a difference from coming out of Goodison saying we were absolutely shocking there and we've been beaten by a poor team. So yeah, we'll dive into the live comments before we crack on with the review. Lewis says, hello, come on you Blues, should have been a pen on Walker. Yeah, I'll talk about VAR and that situation in just a second. He also says, what position should we be looking at in January and what players? For me, we need a creative midfield, and I want to talk about the midfield in just a second. I think Tom Davies was fantastic on the ball on Saturday, and I thought Gylfi Sigurdsson was improved. He wasn't brilliant. It wasn't the best performance I've seen Gylfi Sigurdsson put in, but he showed more effort. He tried harder than he did in the previous week against Liverpool. He was intercepting balls. He was getting himself about. But for me, the movement in the midfield is just so poor. Even when the likes of Tom Davies is having a good game on the ball and Gylfi Sigurdsson's, putting himself about a little bit more, I think far too many of our midfielders, far too many of our players get the ball, give it, and instead of making a move after they've given it, or, you know, find space or move out somewhere to allow space for the you know, other players that have got the ball, and to allow space for, you know, players to pass the ball into. I just think we wait, we give the ball, and we sort of stop, and we expect you to go, right, okay, you go and you do something now. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that we've got in our midfield is, you know, okay, the midfielders might be, you know, good on the ball in terms of, though Tom Davies, don't really think you could fault him in terms of on the ball on Saturday, but the movement is still a massive issue. There's too much standing around, there's not enough finding space and you know, opening space up for the defenders to either come forward or for the attackers to run into, and that needs to be addressed by Carlo Ancelotti. So in terms of position, I'm going to say creative midfielder. Players, you know, I don't know. I still really want a replacement for the Digne, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I'd love the Corey from Watford, but I don't know whether that is a possibility at the minute. But yeah, I still want a replacement for the Digne and a creative centre midfielder. Eugene says, who do you think Everton will get in the January transfer window, and Everton will beat West Ham this weekend? I hope we do beat West Ham. I'm not too sure who we'll get, to be honest with you. We've been linked today, leads me nicely on to our namesake Everton Brazilian forward, I believe he is, creative. I think he's a midfielder or a forward. Everton, coincidentally, has been linked with a move to Everton Football Club. Bloody hell, that's going to get confusing, isn't it? Having a little bit of flirty sort of banter, or whatever you want to call it, with Richarlison on Instagram after the game. Richarlison put, you know, a video of his goal up, or a picture of him celebrating up on Instagram, and Everton, the player, actually commented, you know, that it was in Brazilian, so I'm not too sure what it translated to, but I know that Richarlison's reply that was also in Brazilian translated to, we're waiting for you. So a little bit of flirting there. Obviously we've seen that before with David Neres and various other players over the years. It doesn't really mean Everton, it doesn't really mean anything, but there are rumours that Everton have agreed a £30 million transfer with the club and with the player to join the club in January. But again, it's paper talk, and again, it's the type of transfer that Carlo Ancelotti last week said, don't believe what you read. So we'll have to see how that one goes, but that's sort of this week's transfer rumour. I should have a little segment, shouldn't I, in the show, where, you know, I pop up on an animation and it's like, this week's transfer rumour, and that's this week's basically. You know, next week it'll be somebody else, and this one will probably be forgotten, but it's worth mentioning, isn't it? It's worth mentioning. Lennon says, yes, Cam, hope your day is going good. I was over the moon on Saturday as we won and got to meet the players. Big hello to you, Lennon. I'm not doing too bad, mate. I hope you're all doing well. Fantastic that you got to meet the players, and yeah, like I said, a good win. Consola says, come on, you Blues. Carl says, you know what? It wasn't a great performance, but we won 9 weeks ago. We would have lost, but great fight. Players like Gylfi, Delph, and Dean all improved. Obviously, the Liverpool game was a wake-up call. Yeah, I just want to touch on Luca Dean as well. I haven't actually got it down in my notes, purely because I forgot to put it down. But Luca Dean's performances have been sort of, let's say, not as good in recent weeks as they've been previously. Certainly last year, you know, he started the season, you know, not as well as he started last season, and we've all been sort of, you know, thinking about why that is maybe did he just have a good season last season and he's not carrying that form into this season. I personally believed he was playing with an injury, and still actually do believe he was playing with an injury, because he got injured earlier on in the season and he got sort of rushed back into the squad, and then Leighton Baines come in for a couple of games, but then Dean sort of has been inconsistently throughout you know, the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks. So I still think he's playing with an injury. However, obviously after the game on Saturday, Luca Dean put an Instagram post up saying that it's been a tough week for him and his family. He hashtagged grandfather, so I assume he's lost a grandparent, you know, more specifically his grandfather, over the last sort of week or so. So, you know, that would explain, you know, why his performances mightn't be as good as we're used to. Obviously, he's only a human being. It's expected for him to be a little bit upset, for him to mourn, for other things to be on his mind. And I understand, you know, people saying, you know, he's a professional footballer and all of that, but you've got to take into consideration that he is a human being, and if he's lost a member of his family, especially somebody like his grandfather, who, you know, I assume he was quite close with, then you do have to take that into consideration. And it does make sense as to why his performances, you know, maybe his head's been elsewhere, and that's totally, you know, understandable and totally acceptable as well, you know. And I just want to say, not that he'd be watching, but I'm going to say this on behalf of all Evertonians and all of the Everton fan base. We are all behind you, and we're all here for you as well, and I know how tough it is to lose a grandparent. So, you know, we just have to support Luca Dean, obviously, going forward, and make sure he knows that we're all here to support him as well. Jonathan says, hello, Jonathan. Good says, how did Walcott not get a pen yet? We're going to talk about it in just a second. Cal says, Keane looks solid, confidence on the ball. It's better than Holgate in my opinion. Keane controlled the defence, one of his best performances, but always exceptional for Richarlison. Great call, come on, up to toffees. Couldn't disagree with that, mate. Cal says, you saw the passion in his face when we scored. He wants this job. This isn't a payday for him, it's a challenge. He loves it. I agree. I think, it's very easy to say it's just a payday for Carlo Ancelotti and he's only here for the money, but I don't think he'd have joined the club and taken on this job if if he didn't want it and if he didn't want the challenge. And it is a challenge for Carlo Ancelotti, arguably his hardest challenge. Considering the quality of player that we've got and the position that we're in currently as a football club, not just the team. And hopefully he rises to that challenge. I've read that one. John says, how negative is our fan base? I had to listen for 90 minutes. A fella behind me moaning about another fella further back who moans every game. Absolute joke. Get behind the team and create some atmosphere. Good point. There isn't anything more Everton I've ever read. I don't think there's anything more Everton I've ever read, than that. A fella moaning about a fella who's moaning behind, and that is just typical Everton, that, innit? Then says, VAR's ruining the game, something needs to be done about it. I agree. Carl says, if someone told us last month that we would be 4 or 5 points off Europe, we would have laughed. I would say 17th under Marco. Carlo is bringing the identity back, as Carlo is just pure class. Cannot disagree with that. Controller says 3 points off 7th. There you go. James says, hi, Cam, you good, lad? I'm not too bad, mate. Hope you're doing well. Your Controller also says it's a shit year. Good says, can't wait for the Newcastle game a week from tomorrow. First game in Goodison Park. Yes, definitely. Don't forget to message me as well, and we'll sort out having a little pint before the game. Controller says, sign Everton, lol. It's a massive tongue twister, that, innit? Mike says, every team outside the top 2 is inconsistent. By stringing a couple of wins together, we could be well in between 4th and 6th. Exactly, and it's important that we keep the confidence going. And that we don't sort of get ahead of ourselves, because it is very easy to look at the league table and think, oh my god, we're only 2 or 3 wins here away from being back into the the fight for the top 5, fight for the top 6. It's important that we just focus on the game ahead of us. We just focus on the next game, and I think that's what Carlo Ancelotti's been telling the players and been drilling into the players, is don't really look at the Premier League table, don't really look at where we can or can't be. If we win 2 games or we win 3 games, because equally if we lose 2 or 3 games, we could be right back down where we were when Marco Silva left the football club. So it's important that we take each game as an individual and each game one by one, and we go out and put a performance in next week against West Ham United. But anyway, like I said, diving into the game, obviously we had a couple of opportunities in sort of the first half. Theo Walcott being ragged down, not ragged down because he didn't go down, but absolutely ragged, and VAR deciding not to give a penalty. VAR is, I've written down here, VAR is a joke. It is a joke. VAR is a massive issue in football, because I honestly don't believe VAR has been put in to help referees, to help officials make the right decision. I think VAR has been put in to help referees decide that what decision they want to make, not make the right decision and make the game better and justify the mistakes that officials are making. It's just creating more mistakes from officials, because I know 100% if Theo Walcott would have hit the ground on Saturday, that would have been given a penalty, which makes absolutely no difference, as the fact that the rag back in the box is a foul. And I also know if it had been certain other players wearing certain other coloured shirts, it would have been a penalty as well. It's an absolute joke. The refereeing performance on Saturday was absolutely abysmal. How that fella referees Premier League football is beyond me. He shouldn't even be refereeing Sunday League. He was dreadful. But it just shows again on Saturday how VAR just is useless. It's pointless. It's absolutely pointless. It takes 2-3 minutes. You're sitting there in the ground. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what decision it's going to give. And then it ultimately gives the wrong decision anyway. It's just absolutely pointless. And all it is a way for the FA, Sky Sports and officials to dictate the outcome of Premier League games. That's all it is. That's all it ever has been, and that's all it will be in this country because of the corruption in football. And that is my honest opinion, and I don't think that'll ever be able to be changed because of situations like we seen on Saturday, where Theo Walcott very clearly gets ragged in the box. Now, regardless of whether he decides to throw himself on the floor, whether he decides to roll around for 10 minutes, or whether he decides to stay on his feet and get the shot off, that is being reviewed for a penalty. That is being taken back. That VAR panel, that board, I don't know who the official was on VAR. I'm going to have to start looking at it in every preview so I know to mark his name down so I can have a go at him every review if he makes a bad decision. But that official officiating that VAR should have been in that referee's ear saying, right, okay, Theo stays on his feet, he gets the shot away, which is honest from the player, but he's ragged back and he's impeded, and that has a massive effect on the shot that he has, because his whole body is literally turned inside out. His positioning is straight on the goalkeeper to have a shot with his left foot, and his body is turned to completely the other side. It puts him off balance. He has the shot saved, and how it's not given as a penalty is absolutely beyond me. Obviously, there was another one a little bit later on in the game as well. Dominic Calvert-Lewin denied the goal for a handball, of a situation that has hit him thereabout on the shoulder. Now, if you're going to state that anything from here below is a handball, then why is it not a handball when Dele Alli's got his hand up in the box and it's hitting the tip of his fingers? Why is it not a handball when various other players are literally catching it, and then creating goals in big games? Why is that not a handball? It's a lot of people would say it's inconsistent. A lot of people would say it's being used poorly. A lot of people would say it's being mismanaged. I'd just say it's literally just a way for officials to decide the outcomes of games of football and to change the rules depending on which team's playing, where they're playing, and who they're playing against. And that's all it is. We seen earlier on in the season, Brighton had a decision, a VAR decision, a penalty given for a foul that was never ever a foul. Michael Keane's got his eyes on the ball and he barely touches the lad's foot. The lad goes over, it's a penalty. 2 or 3 weeks later, the FA come out and say, oh no, that was an honest mistake, that shouldn't have been a penalty. So what I fully expect now is in 2 or 3 weeks time the FA to come out and say, yeah, we've made another honest mistake in a game between Everton and Brighton, and Theo Walcott should have had a penalty. Now, ultimately we're sitting here and the only reason why I think we're talking about this is because it's a game review and we're talking about the events of the game. I think if we were just sitting talking to our mates in this tea, or we were just having a general conversation about the game, with all we would be really focusing on is the win and the fact that we got the 3 points and Richarlison's goal and taking the positives. But if we'd have drawn this game or would have lost this game, or Richarlison hadn't provided for me what was an absolute moment of magic, because it's a fantastic goal. It really, really is a fantastic goal. We'll talk about it in a second. All the conversation would have been on is how he has not given that as a penalty, and for me it's an absolute joke how decisions like that are waved away. It really, I'd love to sit down with these officials, I'd love to sit down with the referee and say, please tell me how that isn't a penalty, in what world that isn't a penalty, and then I'd show them a list of clips of other situations in other games of football that have been less contact than that have been given, and say, well, okay, how is this a penalty and that isn't? Because that decision was absolutely dreadful. And like I said, I've got no time for VAR. I've got no time for VAR anymore. I've got no time for the officials in this league, because I honestly think all they do is try and dictate the outcomes of football matches, and that's all VAR is. It's not used to make the correct decision. It's not used to to try and better the mistakes in the game and make sure the game's fairer. It's not. It's actually used the opposite. And the people that are made to believe, and they want us to believe that it's used to make the game fairer and to iron out the mistakes. It's not. It's created more mistakes. It's created more mistakes, and it's created a farce with a lot of the rules in this league. The handball rule is farcical. It's absolutely embarrassing. A country such as ours, with the amount of money in English football, the amount of money in the FA, the amount of money in Sky Sports, BT, and you've got a handball rule like that, it's absolutely, utterly embarrassing. It really, really is embarrassing. And the decisions that referees are making week in, week out, not just for Everton, for other clubs as well. We've seen West Ham deny the goal for a situation where I think it was a hit Declan Rice's arm, without him even knowing. 5 minutes before it, Robert Snodgrass put the ball in the back of the net, and the goal's denied because of that. It's an absolute joke, and it just needs wiping. It needs absolutely wiping, because it's not being used properly. The officials are inept and cannot do the jobs. We should have expected this to happen. When we've been moaning year in, year out about how poor the officials are, how poor the referees are, and how they aren't able to make the correct decisions. Bringing in a system where all as it is video footage of situations that have happened, and then putting the same inept officials in front of that video and asking them to make a decision. You're not going to get anything different. You're still going to get referees that say, oh yeah, that's not a foul one week, oh yeah, it is a foul the next week. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And for me, I think they need an independent board to come in and manage VAR, who aren't Premier League referees, who aren't necessarily working for the FA or working for anybody. An independent board that come in and make those decisions and say, no, that is a penalty. Because that on Saturday was an absolute joke and was an absolute embarrassment. I haven't seen the disallowed goal back a lot of times. I know it hit somewhere, in and around this area, which I suppose, following the rules one week potentially is a handball, following the rules the next week it's not. But that wasn't, for me, that wasn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue was how he didn't give the penalty, which for me is just absolutely beyond imaginable, because it's an absolute joke. But anyway, that's enough negativity. I don't really want to talk about the negatives. We have to talk about VAR because it was a big talking point in the game. We won the game at the end of the day, and like I said earlier on, a fantastic finish by Richarlison. Really, really good play. Brighton have got the ball in the midfield. I think they lose the pass. It's intercepted. I think it's by Richarlison himself. He breaks. He plays it to Bernard. Bernard then takes it on, plays it to Luca Digne. Luca Digne plays a good ball through the box into Richarlison's feet. And Richarlison does absolutely fantastically. And for me, you can see Richarlison is improving week in, week out, because the his footballing brain and his decision making is getting better week in, week out. 2, 3 maybe months ago, maybe a year ago, Richarlison to hit that ball first time with his left foot, but he doesn't. He allows it to come into him. He uses his body. He takes it up. He puts a fantastic turn. He absolutely sells the player, and he curls it into the bottom right-hand corner. The keeper's got no clue where the ball's going. He's got no clue what decision to make, and it's an absolutely fantastic goal. Like I said, brilliant bit of play by Richarlison initially to get it to Bernard. Bernard takes it to Luca Digne. Luca Digne puts in a good ball across the box. Richarlison takes it, and instead of making that rash decision to shoot first time, he turns. It's a fantastic turn, Cruyff turn, and then he curls it into the bottom corner, and it's an absolutely fantastic goal, and a goal worthy of winning a game of football. And that's exactly what it done. It won the game for us on Saturday. And like I said, we didn't create many more opportunities after that. Obviously, we had the second goal, which was disallowed by VAR for a handball. Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored in that one. But that goal was, more than good enough to win us the game of football. And I think there was a lot of individual performances on Saturday that were a lot more improved than some that we've seen in recent weeks. Michael Keane is one that I'm definitely going to pick out, because I've been the first to criticise Michael Keane previously about his performances, certainly under Marco Silva. I think he's had a poor season so far this season, but Carlo Ancelotti's come in. He hasn't had an awful lot of game time. That sort of centre-back partnership has been, Yerry Mina and Mason Holgate, and probably rightly so as well. They've been the most informed centre-halves. Yerry Mina coming out of the team, which I think shocked a lot of Evertonians. I want to talk about the start 11 for a minute, because obviously after last Sunday's collapse, or, tragedy, or disaster, whatever you want to call it, after last Sunday's performance against Liverpool, I think a lot of Evertonians sort of expected to not see the likes of Sigurdsson, to not see the likes of Delta, not see the likes of Schneidlin in the team. Maybe Luca Digne come out as well because he didn't look fit. But they definitely didn't expect Michael Keane to be in there. But obviously when it hit 2 o'clock, I was standing in the fan zone. I was with Network Michael D. I was with some fans as well. And we were listening to obviously the team news being announced on the stage. And when you hear Captain Gylfi Sigurdsson, which I don't agree with, by the way, and you're seeing Luca Digne back in the team, you're seeing Michael Keane in the team, you do sort of think you have to have that trust in Carlo Ancelotti, and you have to think, right, okay, maybe it's not the team I'd go with personally, but let's trust the manager. And it worked. It worked on Saturday, and we have to understand, when you've got Gylfi Sigurdsson and Morgan Schneider, who put in a dreadful performance last Sunday against Liverpool, and you've got Fabian Delph, who, wasn't particularly awful against Liverpool, but had obviously the whole situation, regarding arguing with a fan on social media. That's 3 of not only your senior midfielders, but that's 3 centre midfielders. At the end of the day, take away the fact that the senior midfielders, that they've been here a long time, that one of them's the vice captain, that's 3 midfielders. Now, we ain't got an awful lot of midfielders anyway. You take those 3 out of the squad or the team or whatever, because you don't think they deserve to play. You've got Tom Davies there. Now, my argument in the game preview, and I think a lot of Evertonians' argument, was to put Mason Holgate in next to Tom Davies in the centre of midfield, and that's fine. But that would have meant obviously Michael Keane was to come in anyway. But Carlo Ancelotti obviously was coming into this game, and he'd had a conversation with Gylfi Sigurdsson. He knew he wasn't going to play Morgan Schneider, he knew he wasn't going to play Fabian Delph, but obviously he'd had a conversation with Gylfi Sigurdsson, and he was confident in putting Gylfi Sigurdsson in there next to somebody with a little bit more energy, next to somebody with a little bit more maybe fight, maybe desire to win balls and desire to work hard in Tom Davies. And then a decision was to take Yerry Mina out in order to rest Yerry Mina, because he's played an awful lot of football in recent weeks, which he had. Carlo Ancelotti's since come out after the game and said, he took Yerry Mina out to give him a rest. It'll be the same with Mason Holgate next week against West Ham. He'll come out, he'll have a rest. It'll be Michael Keane and Yerry Mina in the centre back partnership, barring any injuries or any situations at Finch Farm, which, let's say, touch wood, doesn't happen between now and Saturday. But he values all three centre-halves if they give him the same confidence, basically, and that's really, really nice to hear. But like I said, maybe we had too much of an expectation for Carlo Ancelotti to change the team drastically when it wasn't going to happen, and I'm sort of happy in a way that Carlo Ancelotti didn't really give into that maybe temptation, or didn't really give into that demand of the fans, as to say certain players shouldn't be in, because I didn't think Gylfi Sigurdsson should have started on Saturday, and when I seen his name on the team sheet, I was thinking, oh, what's going on here? Why is he in the starting 11? Is he up for it? Is he going to run around? Is he going to try? Because, Brighton are a team that we're in good form, and a team that, could come and could take points off you if you're not, 100% up for it. But, obviously Carlo Ancelotti trusted in Gylfi Sigurdsson, he trusted in Michael Keane, and I thought Michael Keane had a fantastic game. I thought Michael Keane personally was my man of the match. He stepped in, after not having the greatest start of the season, not being the most confident, he stepped in, and I thought he commanded the area really, really well. I thought he commanded the defence. He was very, very solid. He was making those last-ditch tackles. He was getting back. He was, he was gaining in confidence as the game went, and I thought his performance was really, really good. Gylfi Sigurdsson, like I said at the start of the team, it wasn't brilliant. Let's be perfectly honest. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not lie. It wasn't brilliant, but it was improved as to what we seen, on Sunday. He was getting himself about here and there. He was putting a tackle in. He was winning the ball back. He was intercepting. He was doing an awful lot more than what he'd done against Liverpool and what he'd done against Manchester City, which is an improvement. Yes, it wasn't the best performance you'll see under Gylfi Sigurdsson, but I question whether Gylfi Sigurdsson's got the energy to put in really, really good performances week in, week out, to be honest with you. It was a better performance. Like I said, the performance by Michael Keane was fantastic as well. So maybe we do just have to start to, trust in, Carlo Ancelotti's team, selection and his tactics more often, because like I said, we were beaten. I'd say, okay, Manchester City could have had a couple more on that day. Jesus could have had the hat-trick, for example. But we were only beaten by 2-1 away from home against the champions, which isn't an awful result, considering where we felt we were 2 or 3 months ago. And, the only real bad game in the last 2 or 3 months has been that Liverpool, 2 months, shall we say, after the Merseyside derby, has been that Liverpool game in the Cup last week. And I think that's sort of angered a lot of Evertonians, and that's changed the mindset of a lot of Evertonians. But now that we're back to winning ways, and now that we've seen Michael Keane come in and put in a good performance, and we've seen, that Gylfi Sigurdsson can be relatively useful in the midfield when he tries and when he gets about and when he's intercepting balls and when he's next to a player with a little bit more energy like Tom Davies. Yes, there's a wider issue there, and maybe he's not quick enough, maybe he's not got the stamina, maybe he's not got the legs, maybe he doesn't create the space that we need going forward. But the issues that we need to resolve going forward aren't going to happen over a week, 2 week period of time. They're certainly not going to happen between a week from when we lost to Liverpool as to when that we were playing Brighton, or 6 days. So maybe we do have to trust a little bit more in Carlo Ancelotti's team selection. I thought Bernard as well in the first half was absolutely fantastic on Saturday. In the second half, he did seem to dip a little bit, and I don't know whether that's because of tiredness, I don't know whether that's because of fatigue, but in the second half, he did tend to dip a little bit. But in the first half, he was by far our most creative player. It was arguably the best half of football you see in of Bernard in an Everton shirt. He was getting about, he was creating opportunities, he was taking players on, and that's obviously what we want to see. Anyway, let's get back into the live comments now. Cal says, I sang from 1 to 90 like always. I'm not going to lie, the atmosphere wasn't as bad as people made. We were struggling. My brother had his head in his hands from the 75th to the 90th minute. And it did feel like one of those games where you were thinking, are we going to have to hold on? Obviously, Glenn Murray went close with a header. Really, really good save from Jordan Pickford. Who again, I think a lot of people might have been unhappy to see starting, but I thought he had a relatively good game. Was it Glenn Murray hitting the crossbar as well from a header? And you did feel like it was a game that maybe we were hanging on a little bit, but considering where we are in terms of fitness, where we are in terms of the quality of the squad, and where we are in terms of, as you see, how bad it can get with the performance against Liverpool, it was a really, really good win on Saturday, and we just have to look forward now. Eugene says, who do we need in the January transfer window? Do you think Everton need to get rid of Gylfi Sigurdsson in the January transfer window? I think Gylfi Sigurdsson hasn't got a long-term future at Everton, and I think Carlo Ancelotti knows that, and whether he's replaced in January, I think is really, really tough. Obviously, we're nearly halfway through January now, and there's been no movement in terms of outgoings or incomings, other than obviously Cenk Tosun leaving on loan, and a couple of the younger players leaving on loan as well. But I think, like I said, I don't think Gylfi Sigurdsson's got a long-term future at Everton. I think if he's not sold in this transfer window, I think the summer will be the transfer window where, Carlo Ancelotti looks to move him on. If you're enjoying the scene, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. It means a massive amount to me. Subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. It only takes a second. Chris says, hi, Cam. Hi, Chris. Hope you're doing well. Kra says, your brother's used to us chuck an arm around him and sing Ancelotti's song in his ear, and when it happens. Carl says, people are saying stuff about Gylfi, but he hasn't played in his natural position, which is Cam, for months. Yeah, I understand that, but I just don't think he's got enough energy. I really don't. And I think we'd be better having a centre attacker midfielder who has got, a lot of energy. I'd love a Jack Grealish, or, I'd have loved James Maddison before he went to Leicester. I just question whether Gylfi's got the legs anymore. James says, look, I'm not a Carlo fan, but we'll get better if he had Gomez and the other lad fit. Might be able to control games, but what it is, I suppose, is the way up. Everton, forever Everton. Fair enough. Very interesting to hear that, you're not the biggest fan of Carlo. Eden says we will get good need points this weekend. Spot on, we do. Lennon says, don't know what will happen with Pickford, because when Mina came on in the late minutes on Saturday, Pickford asked to come off instead of Digne. I don't know, that's a little bit of a strange one. Kroos, I didn't see that. Kroos says, we're going to be in transition for at least a season or two, but that's not to say we can't compete. I'm not sure most teams are never complete, but we're in miles better shape than we was. Spot on. Cal says, Jack Grealish for me. That Trossard was class, ripped us apart. I agree, I'd love Jack Grealish. Jonathan says, Everton Soros can play anywhere across the front line. There you go, really, really positive. Another creative player that we potentially need. Dane says, Decore to replace Garner and Ruben Loftus-Cheek in place of Schneidlin. Fair enough. I'd like to see Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I think he's a good player, but I don't know whether he would come to Everton, if I'm being honest with you. Steve says, Cam, we need a forward and another midfielder in the window ASAP. I agree, mate. Reece says, mate, it's also negative recently, getting on my nerves. No wonder we play shit. I don't actually think it was too negative after the game. It was negative, maybe prior to the game, and certainly last week because of the situation that happened and the fallout of the Merseyside derby. But I think it is important that we start to become positive going forward. Now we've had a couple of really, really good Premier League wins, 3 really, really good Premier League wins under Carlo Ancelotti, some good performances under Duncan Ferguson as well. We've only lost 1 Premier League game under Carlo Ancelotti, and that was to the champions. So, we do need to look forward, and if we can get a good result against West Ham away from home, on Saturday to match that with the Newcastle game away from home, then I think, it is looking really, really positive going forward. Carl says Gomez in training tomorrow. Yes, Andre Gomez is due to start individual training this week. Jean-Philippe Gbamin also has started individual training, so hopefully we'll see them back sooner rather than later. Eugene says, do you think David Moyes will get a good reputation? I assume reception from Everton fans. I don't think there'll be much of a reception for him at all, good or bad. It'll be more about us winning and getting the 3 points, of course. Len says, I hope not easy to say. CJ says, Carlo will play Keane and Mina this week. He said he looks to give centre-back 2 games and then give him 1 game rest, so it's all 3 get playing time. He did. He also said, the players need to get used to rotation and little amounts of rotation. He said he doesn't necessarily believe in changing 6, 7, 8 players at once, but he does believe in small rotations and rotating players to improve fitness and to make sure players get the right the right amount of rest and the right amount of game time. And he did say that Michael Keane will partner Yerry Mina this week. It's Mason Holgate's turn to have a little bit of a rest out the team. Joel says Bernard was my man of the match. Fair point. Carl says Mina and Keane don't work. I think they did on Saturday, and no, they didn't. Sorry, on Saturday it was Keane and Holgate. But we'll have to see. They've worked previously, but they've also had some bad performances previously, so we'll have to see on Saturday. I would assume that Mason Holgate will be on the bench if need be. CJ says the fact how close we are to Europe just shows how shit everyone else has been. Just we've been losing games on the bounce, exactly, and it shows how poor this league is at the minute. But if we can get another couple of good wins under our belt, then we're right up there, aren't we? Eugene says David Moyes will get West Ham relegated. I don't think he will. But there's, they're still in the battle. Wayne says, Cam lad, how's everyone doing? I'm not too bad, mate. Hope you're doing well. He also says penalty was a joke, and then the BBC didn't show the other 2 VAR scoops. They never do when it's Everton, mate. They never do. He also says there was 3. We got none, but all over DCL. A call for time to score a goal. I agree last week. He also says Moyes will keep them up. I agree, VAR is bollocks. But it's not because they care about what happens in an Everton versus Brighton game. They're just idiots, and the refs are a joke. Spot on, mate. Spot on. Good analysis. CJ says, I wish we had VAR like it wasn't the World Cup. Should get foreign refs like the World Cup. Surely they can't go wrong. Exactly. It's being implemented so poorly this season. Liam says, VAR is crap. I agree. Wim says, where's the chatter? What's up, peeps? Hit like. Thank you very much, Wim. Yeah, if you could hit the like, it mean a massive amount to me. Robert says, can't see you. I don't know whether you're assuming me. I hope you can see me. I can see myself, so I'm sure you can see me. Chris says, hi mate, commenting from my dad's spare phone. Well done on the win. Thank you very much, Chris. Nice to see you, of course. I hope you're doing well yourself. Wimmy says, they should go back and look at the monitor and decide, be a ref, it's what you get paid for. Couldn't agree more, mate. Absolutely couldn't agree more. But they don't want to do it. They don't want to do absolutely anything. And they're clouded, and they go away, and they can't be asked any questions, and they can't, they can't explain the decision, and that's why, the level of refereeing in this country is shite. James says Richie's goal top class, spot on, couldn't agree more. Alex says yes Cam, yes Alex. Wim says transfers. Robert says how we haven't got a CM by now is terrible. Maybe they've got one lined up. Wim says Mateus Vecino, agreed, would be nice if a club were more proactive in the transfer window, leaving everything last minute and getting maybe players. Will be his prime example. Fair point. James says Iwobi is 23 and he will do well. I actually agree with that. Yeah, I think he will come good. Wimmy says not ripping into Iwobi, he is okay, but still feel like we got him in a last minute panic. I think that's the view of a lot of Evertonians. Wayne says, you were right, Cam. Rumour has it you stitched Network Michael D up on that video you did together. Any truth in this? Yeah, if you haven't seen the preview to this game, for about the first 20 minutes of it, I had a setting on the streaming software that I use, which meant that Mike's voice was echoed quite poorly. It was totally my fault. If obviously it's a little bit irrelevant now because it's a preview to this game, but we have a lot of conversation about a lot of other topics to do with Everton. It's not just previewing the game. We talk about the under-23s and the development of young players at Everton. We talk about going forward and the manager. We talk about the performance and the effort of some players as well. So if you haven't seen that, it's like an hour and 20 minutes long. The first 20 to 30 minutes is a little bit shaky with the audio, but if you skip through that, you've got a good hour's worth of what I would like to think is good conversation between me and Mike, talking about Everton Football Club and specifically talking about how what we're seeing on the pitch is quite is quite sort of, what's the word I'm looking for without getting in trouble, quite symbolic, let's say, of what may be happening sort of, in the upper sort of parts of the football club. Robert says, none of the current fit CMs are good enough in my opinion. Wim says he stitched Mike right up, wondered where you were, Wayne. Matthew says, would you take Lewis Dunk from Brighton as a new centre-back? I think Lewis Dunk's a good player. I like Lewis Dunk. I don't know whether I'd take him. I don't know. I do like him though. I think he's a good centre half. I just think if he come in, he'd want to be starting week in, week out. And I have been quite impressed with Mason Holgate and Yerry Mina this season. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that. Would you take Lewis Dunk from Brighton? He's a good player. I'd probably take him, but I think he'd demand to be playing week in, week out. And I don't know if he, at the minute, I think he's better than Mina or Holgate. Wayne says Man City are looking, and of course there's other teams in for him. Wayne says, what's your opinion on Bernard? Do you think he can play centre mid? He reminded me of a Fabregas. Then we saw Everton, Suarez or Bowen to play on the left hand side for more goals in the team. Bernard can play in the number 10. Bernard can play in that number 10 role, and he is very creative when he's in the centre of the park and he's linking the wingers up with the striker, or he's getting the ball from the regular midfielders and he's moving that on. But we haven't seen Everton play with a specific number 10 for quite some time. I don't think we could put Bernard in a generic central midfield role. I think if he was to be put in the midfield, it would have to be in that number 10 role. And obviously Carlo Ancelotti hasn't favoured any formations with the number 10 this season, so it's whether he goes back to a formation that includes a number 10, so that we might see Bernard in there. William says apparently we're looking at Lucas Vecino, Brazilian centre-back. I haven't read that rumour yet, but I'm sure it's somewhere out there. Jeffy says we'll beat them in March. I hope so. Tom says shout out please, shout out to Tom. William says Bernard is class, see him as a creative attacking midfielder. I'd love to see him in that position, but like I said, we just don't really play with that formation anymore. Tom says, should we sign someone in January? Yes, we should. William says, but we would have 3 or have Ghana get back up your midfield. If we could get Ghana back, I think I'd fall off my chair. Av says, I agree with you, Cam, with your comment on Saturday. We needed more goals to make sure we got the win, but the main thing is 3 points and a clean sheet. Spot on. Siri says, yeah, Pickford went flying into the post and hurt himself. He did. William says, agree, Wayne, the game he did come on, looked a little bit lost. Wayne says, Gordon looking like having a loan. I think he could have gone earlier in the season. Hope it goes well for him. He needs to... No, He definitely doesn't need to be on them. But I hope it does go well for him. Like you said, William says we don't need help as a team of young players. Will says, Cam, what are your thoughts on Everton Suarez links? I would love him at the club alongside Richie and Bernard. I'd love him at the club. I think he's a very creative player, a very good technical player. Obviously, he's got that connection with Bernard and Richarlison already with being Brazilian. And I would love him at the club. I think he's a player that could definitely improve our squad. He had a really good Copa America, was it, in the summer alongside Richarlison. But it's whether, we could get that deal over the line. Wayne says Lewis Gibson best sign up, overwasted 6 million on someone who hasn't kicked the ball for us. He's looking like he may sign a new contract. William says hit the like 70 people. Yeah, if you could hit the like, it'd mean a massive amount to me, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe as well. William says Everton's good, but there's also a left-sided winger. He is. Eric says I thought that Moise Keane would play more under Carlo Ancelotti, but he barely just gives the kid a run out in this team, and his quality will shine through. I think that's potentially because he doesn't really want to throw him into a team that aren't sort of solid and aren't putting in consistent solid performances. I think we'll start to see more of Moise Keane when the team are, it's Carlo Ancelotti sort of figured out his best 11, and he's figured out the team that he wants to play week in, week out. And, after this run of games that we've got coming up, obviously, after back of a tough December and a lot of games that we've played, I think that's when we'll start to see more of Moise Keane. William said we need a right-sided winger. Eric says, where's Iwobi? He's still injured. He said, are we signing anyone? Don't know. Michael says, Keane and Mina as a partnership should suit playing against the immobile Haller. It should. Everton TV says, sure, Shane Duffy at the airport wasn't too happy. I'm not surprised, mate. William says, I think Moise, it'll be good when we have a decent, consistent team that will bring young players in without the pressure. I hope you don't mean Moise coming to Everton. Or you're referring to Moise Keane. Yeah, he is referring to Moise Keane, sorry. Everton TV says Eric Iwobi is injured and has been for a few weeks. Gareth says the man himself. Eugene says, did you hear about Anthony Gordon leaving the club on loan in January? Transfer window are going to Germany. I did, and I think it will be really good for his development. William says, you get me the kid. Eugene says, Evertonian TV says, Eugene, I'm going to a club like Bayern. Wouldn't get much first team football, no, maybe not, but definitely going to another club in Germany, maybe a club a little bit lower down in the Bundesliga. Robert says Proper looked a decent lad. He did. Garrick says Duffy better than Dunk in my opinion, and Evertonian TV agrees. Jason says Everton have to start improving. Fans getting fed up with the excuses now. And we will improve. Like I said, Saturday's performance wasn't the best performance. It wasn't the greatest performance you'll see from an Everton team, but we got the win, and that's all that matters. And how many times have you come out to Goodison Park and said that wasn't the greatest performance, and we didn't win, and we've lost the game, or we were good today, but we still lost at the end of the day. Whereas, like I said, it's better coming out to Goodison saying, okay, we could do better, and it wasn't the best performance, but we still won. Wayne says, we like excuses, we're used to it. James says, Ake for me from Bournemouth, very good player, but I think they'd want too much for him. Wayne says, plus incessant, who wants to be boring and win all the time. Alf says, Bernard, in my opinion, should definitely start against West Ham. He was my man of the match against Brighton. He basically ran the show. He's got 2 goals in 2 games against West Ham. He should definitely start against West Ham, I agree. Amiibo says, I think the only player that has been consistent this season is Holgate, and Bernard when he has played maybe Mina, and that is tough to disagree with as well. 1878 says Cam, Liam or Noel. I assume you're talking about the Gallaghers. I like Oasis together, but I don't really like Noel or Liam in terms of their individual and their solo careers, so maybe Liam. I'll probably listen more to Liam. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's live stream. If you have enjoyed, please do hit that like button. It only takes a second. One thing I want to mention before we leave today, as I mentioned last week, I will be doing the Everton sleepout, Goodison Park sleepout with my girlfriend this March. We'll be going to Goodison Park. If you don't know what the sleepout is, you spend the night at Goodison Park. And basically it's in aid of Everton in the community and raising money and raising awareness for young people aged between 18 and 23, I believe it is, who are on the risk of homelessness. We're looking to raise £250 each. The link to both of our Just Giving pages are in the description, so if you could spare any pennies whatsoever, it doesn't matter how big or small the amount is, if you could spare absolutely anything, we would be greatly appreciated. Like I said, the sleepout will be on the 6th of March. We're looking to film some of it as well, and maybe get a little bit of a vlog up. It's going to be a cold, uncomfortable night, but obviously it's all raising money for a really good cause for everything in the community, which is fantastic as well. Can't wait to get down there at Goodison and spend the night in the cold. Like I said, if you can spare any change whatsoever, the links are in the description, and we would be greatly appreciated as well. 1870 says that'll do for me. Wayne says, who do you think will go down? Norwich, Will. Who's the other two? Villa. and Bournemouth. I honestly think the three now. Wayne says no Liam Neeson or Noel Gallagher. Liam Neeson then. 1870s, that'll do for me. Eugene says see you bye up the toffees. Thank you very much, Eugene. Up the toffees, of course. Wayne says I have a particular set of kills. Meatball says you have a girlfriend. How? I do, yeah, I do. Wayne says hit the likes, peeps. Have a good one. Thank you very much. Robert says how'd you get involved in the sleepout camp? If you go over to Everton in the Community's website or Twitter page, there should be a link there. You sign up. I think you pay a £20 fee to sign up, and then obviously you create your Just Giving page. They send you an email to create your Just Giving page, and then you raise funds, and then you turn up on the day. 1878 says can't have Liam without Noel and Noel without Liam. Jess says Everton in the community website, sign up and £20 to pay to do it, then raise money. Spot on, there you go. That's how you sign up. Thanks, Jess. And Wayne says have fun at the sleepout. Thank you very much. I really, really will do. Anyway, that's going to do it for today. A massive, massive thanks for watching. Please do hit that like button if you have enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We'll be back on Wednesday at 5:30 for another live team, talking more Everton Football Club and talking more Everton news and transfer rumours as well. Big, big thanks for watching. Please do hit that like button if you have enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. It only takes a second. 1870s is Cam. Great show tonight, mate. Hitting the like on the way out. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate that one. Big thanks to everybody for watching. Massive thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments as per usual. If you're watching the YouTube video, leave thoughts and comments in the comment section down below, and I'll be sure to reply to as many of them as possible. Big thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.